Everybody, thank you so much for coming out tonight on December evening, number one. Welcome to this town hall meeting concerning safety at 9th Avenue Northwest and the Trans-Canada Highway. My name is Craig Hemingway. I'm Manager of Communications and Stakeholder Relations for the City of Moose Jaw. I'm proud to be here on Toronto territory and welcome you all here tonight. First, I'll introduce to you our special guests. We have the City of Moose Jaw, Mayor Clive Tolley, City Councilors Heather Eby, Jamie Logan, Crystal Froze, and Don Looney, all here tonight. Thank you for coming. We also have City Manager Jim Poupalt here, our Director of Planning and Development, Michelle Sanson, our Director of Engineering, Bevan Harleton, also here tonight. We'll be hearing from some other guests here tonight, including Moose Jaw Fire Chief Rod Montgomery, Deputy Chief Rick Johns, and Staff Sergeant Taylor Elder of Moose Jaw Police Service, and Rob Clark, CEO of the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce. And so as we advertise this event, again, we just want to reiterate, we're looking for public input onto any potential safety features that could occur at the 9th Avenue Northwest and the Trans-Canada Highway. And any information gathered here tonight is going to be forwarded to our provincial government for their consideration as they contemplate any changes to that intersection. I will also tell you that we are going to be posting this meeting online for those that couldn't make it tonight. So it is recording right now. And of course, we'll ask, once we get through our set speakers, we'll be opening up the floor for any questions or comments you'd like to make, any suggestions you have that you want to be forwarded. They will be recorded tonight and again passed on to provincial government. And we just ask again, we'll keep the comments respectful and the spirit in which this is intended, which is an informational gathering session. So thank you so much again for attending. So having said all of that, our first speaker tonight is Mayor Clive Tolley.
Thank you, Craig, and welcome everyone. It isn't very nice out tonight, so I'm happy to see some people ventured out. I want to make sure that we're clear about why we're here. The province has undertaken a corridor study of the highway around Moose Jaw, and they are being prepared by about the middle of this month to release the results of that study. What occurred to us at the city was that we really hadn't asked our citizens very much about this issue. We had our own personal issues with that intersection and our own views, but we hadn't actually asked our citizenry to come forward and say what their opinions were about it. My opinion was formed a long time ago, back in this, when I was just a young fella, is two friends of mine, just slightly ahead of me in age, left school and went to work at the Trans-Canada pipeline, and one morning at dawn, they could not see a semi-trailer coming, and they actually turned in front of a semi-trailer and were killed at that intersection. It's been kind of a source of irritation for me since that time. All through these years, I've wondered, why couldn't that be a safer intersection? So I've had my own feelings about it. And then the city administration through the years has talked at different times about a solution for that. And there's been overtures made to the provincial government through different years and through different governments. And this is our opportunity to simply give our opinion as citizens of Moose Jaw, people who've used that intersection, about what you think should happen there. And we'll gather, collate that information and pass it on to the province. I want to be clear that we're not doing this in place of the province, or we're not trying to undermine in any way any of the work that they have done. It's an additional opportunity for us to provide some input. MLAs Tim McLeod and Greg Lawrence asked me specifically to pass on their regrets that they're busy in session in Regina and could not come here this evening. And I know that the Minister of Highways and his staff are working diligently trying to come up with some alternatives that they'll present later this month. And so whatever we learn tonight, we'll just simply pass it on to them. And so we'll be happy to hear your opinions and whatnot. And before that, Craig's going to introduce different people that are on our agenda here who will express some of their police, fire, etc. So thank you for coming. Let's have a meaningful period of time here, provide your input, and we'll contribute that information back to the province. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Also want to extend a couple of thank yous to Mayor's Assistant Caroline Drager and the City Manager's Assistant Heather St. Dennis for their part in really organizing this entire evening and working the front out there. So thank you so much to them. I'll now call upon the City Manager Jim Kufalt, who wants to make some remarks in regards to the connector program in the province. You can get through.
Skinny, but not that skinny. Thanks, Bob. Just wanted to give some context on the highway number 1 and the 9th Northwest or 9th Northwest Road. Again, the highway number 1 is 100% provincial responsibility under the Urban Connector Program. And we've been asked a couple of times, why doesn't the city contribute to the cost of whatever happens there? And so what we are saying to the people, and to let you know, is that, well, the traffic lights we think are probably $500,000 or under $1 million anyways. The bigger issue would be if they are looking at long-term putting in overpasses. Those can run 30, 40, $50 million. And we're fearful of getting involved in a provincial responsibility when it's clearly theirs. And so that's, again, just to give some context of why the city is not putting money towards this program. We think, though, we may have found a funding solution that is not coming out of our pocket. And so, if lights is what the province is suggesting to us, we may be able to find a way to give them a hand with that. But up till then, we don't want to take any part of the responsibility of an overpass or anything more expensive than that. We obviously have enough roads and infrastructure that we have to look after. So I just want to give that context for people, and I'll give it back to Craig.
Thank you, Jim. Well, as the mayor alluded to, and we were all very well aware that there were many fatal and serious accidents at that intersection, and nobody knows that more than the people that have to respond to them. So we thought it'd be good to hear from emergency services personnel in the city of Moose Jaw tonight, beginning with Moose Jaw Fire Department, our Chief Rod Montgomery.
I guess from fire's perspective, obviously we've responded to that area to tell us. But I guess a broader focus is 9th Avenue Northwest is a section that crosses the highway, responding to that total 9th Avenue. So all those areas you can tell that's really. So anytime you cross highway, first response is well to airport, not highway there, cross to tell it there as well. So anytime you cross a highway, I can't offer solutions that I'm sure there's engineers that will look into this in more detail. I do know that lights don't necessarily solve the problem. There'll still be accidents, still respond to the intersection of main and Thatcher with those first injuries. You have the service road in front. So the cars, it seemed almost daily. So lights in itself won't solve the problem. Issue. This is just my own personal opinion from personal experiences. Certainly, anytime you can use overpassing, I think that's the best solution. So I don't know if it's a north-south service roads that connect to the Main Street one, or if the province has bigger plans. I hope that they'll be doing their research. They'll certainly have numbers to support. I know in Medicine that you see high condition areas, highway lights are so those intersections. Although are better, I think speed number one. What I can tell you factually, now that the traffic is going to reduce to 80 kilometers an hour, the impacts of those accidents have been less. There hasn't been as been as serious. That's my certainly thinking of traffic now. But I think the broader focus has to be the whole border landfill all the way to 9th Avenue West. So I don't want the focus just to be on 9th Avenue. So we think, and whether that's a reduction in speed down at least here tonight, whether it's passive, monitoring radar, over radar, or officers of the police, I don't know what the answer is, but
those things, if we reduce the speed, I think certainly makes a big difference. We've seen that already to 80, so it's go to 60 in turn. That is a more permanent solution, but those are just my thoughts and some of the perspective. But certainly we've seen a reduction since we've dropped it down to 80, but it hasn't. Just some thoughts, I'll share with you. When we're looking at the numbers, we're trying to accumulate some detail. We're going back quite a ways, although length was maybe more of a problem, it was still fairly minor. From the landfill all the way through this. Thank you. Questions or anything?
We'll get to our speakers and then if there's questions after, we'll straight into those. Thank you, Chief. The Moose Jaw Police Service, Deputy Chief Rick Johns and Staff Sergeant Taylor Elder.
Thank you, Greg. I'm going to turn it over to Staff Sergeant Elder in just a moment, and he has done some research that might be helpful. Speaking anecdotally, I've been a police officer here for 25 years. Early in my career, I spent a lot of time on that highway doing traffic enforcement because we knew it was a problem area. And I can tell you from experience that there were more speeders than people we could stop back in that time. At about 2016, we moved into the automated speed enforcement program, and we've seen reductions since then. That is an initiative through SGI. It was a 2-year pilot, now it's a permanent fixture. The automated speed enforcement provides value because there's also increased signage going into that area, advising of a speed reduction and speed cameras in that area. And we think that also provides some deterrent and a risk reduction as well with respect to speeders. And I've been to 2 fatals at the Highway 1 and 9th Avenue Northwest in the past. Unfortunately, since the ASE has come into play, we haven't had a fatal there. So I'll turn it over to Staff Sergeant Elder. He has a little bit of data that he can share just with respect to what we've been able to get from the automated speed systems.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Like Deputy Chief mentioned, I'm assessing stats from the actual speed cameras. So the stats I'm referring to are going to be from January 25th, 2020 until November 29th when I ran these stats. So between that time, we had 5,779,000 vehicles through that intersection, and that's just east and west. Every time a vehicle passes east or west through there, it's tracked through the camera, whether they're speeding or not. So every time a vehicle goes through there, we kind of have a record of it. Like I mentioned, 5.7 million vehicles through there. The average speed of those vehicles is actually below the speed limit. The average speed of the vehicle is 73.72 kilometers per hour. Now, the people who get violations through that intersection are obviously going to above that. The highest speed that we've had through there is from August of 2020, and we had a vehicle going 186 kilometers through that gate zone. So 106 kilometers is what the speed limit. I would echo what the fire chief mentioned. I mean, lights isn't going to solve it. We're going to have some other issues going through that intersection. But obviously the increased signage with the photo radar and the I guess the deterrence of the cameras in that intersection has decreased the severity of the accidents we've been to. It's kind of tough for us to track the stats in that intersection because a lot of times when we have a collision at that intersection involves an out of province place. So no matter how minor it is, we have to attend every time there's a vehicle from out of province. So our stats at that intersection haven't really changed since the camera's been there, but I can definitely echo what the deputy chief just said. If we've been to far less severe accidents since the cameras have been up there. So, thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we have on behalf of the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce, their CEO, Rob Clark.
Anyways, good news that with the cameras up there, things have changed. So just on behalf of the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce Board, and we're supporting the growing voice of putting traffic lights there. Just Part of it is, I think most of it is that, I know I go out there and the semis, the tractor trailers, you feel like you're playing chicken, they're trying to get across the road. They're actually waving you on, you don't want to go, but you don't know what's behind them, what's coming. So there is a bit of concern of that. And I'll go back just to, I did a survey with the chamber board directors, and two of them, again, going to be going back to the overpass versus the lights. But the majority of the Chamber of Commerce was looking at that as, have the lights in place. Again, we've talked about some accidents, and I don't know if I'm echoing Clive's remarks, but I know some families that been killed out there. I was thinking it was a grade 10 the first time I heard about it. And every time you hear of an accident nowadays, first thing that goes through my mind is, why hasn't something been done? Why hasn't something been corrected? Why hasn't something been fixed? It is a safety, issue. And other than that, a couple things that the board directors talked about was a little bit about with lights there again. It's going to be an economic impact to all the businesses on that road, etc. Really, just it's a long-term problem and a huge safety issue. It's a long simmering concerns on our behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. And I just want to close it. We really urge the province to install a set of traffic lights there. And if it's working with the speed cameras, I mean, it's going to work with the traffic lights. So now you are slowing down or you are stopping. I don't know a whole lot about just the stats or motion sensors or whatever, but there has to be some thought put into this. And, we need to make it a little bit safer than it is at the moment.
Thank you, Rob. One more set of comments, and then we will get to your questions or comments if you have any. So if you want to start thinking about those. Kyle Sarita of Medivie Health Services could not be here tonight, but did want to pass along some comments that he had and sent them in an email. And I quote, prior to the changes of an 80 km/h zone with photo radar a number of years ago, we responded to that intersection of 9th Northwest and the Trans-Canada bi-weekly, if not weekly, for high-speed collisions. There were a high mechanism of injuries. Since they made the change to 80 km/h and photo radar, we may only go to that intersection once every month or every 6 weeks, far less than before, and any injuries experienced are far less in severity as well due to the lower speeds. I can say this with confidence that without the data to yet support it, that we find ourselves paying more attention to the intersection of Thatcher Drive and Highway 1 than we do right now, and find it more problematic today than the intersection of 9th Avenue and Highway 1. So that's from Kyle Sarita of Medivie Health Services. So thank you all to our speakers. And if anybody has any comments, just raise your hand and I can play Donahue and run out. I'm glad we have a crowd that's old enough to get that reference. Sir?
Yeah, okay, Dennis, sir, I'm just a resident here, but I've lived here since the 50s, born and raised. Much similar to what the mayor had said and Rod about, I know people that have got injured and killed at that intersection as well. So, I mean, you've lived in the city, you've heard about it. I view it a little differently in that because it's a Trans-Canada highway, I also view it as a federal issue as well. It's an east-west. Starts at the east of our country and goes to the west of our country. So I think whoever is involved in this and funding it should be a responsibility as well, not only provincial but federal. I look at what's going on around Moose Jaw, and I agree with Rod. It's more than just 9th Northwest. 9th, as we build out towards the east with the new Canadian Tire stores, the more motels that are there, et cetera, that's going on in that northeast corner, we're going to find that intersection on 9th East is going to become a great concern too. I think that I have a son that lived in Pilot Butte. And as we all know, we spent $3 billion going around Regina and fixing those intersections that cross. Mentioned, anytime you cross a highway, especially the #1 highway, you're putting your life in somebody else's hands. But that was a terrible intersection. I used to use it quite a bit going to my son's house, and boy, I'll tell you, you have to be cautious. A lot of injuries, a lot of deaths at that one. You put an overpass in. An overpass at White City. It's a Trans-Canada highway. My concept is I'm very supportive of overpasses. You should not, in my mind, be stopping traffic on, if you can, do not stop traffic on the Trans-Canada Highway. Brings out a whole different number of issues. If you look at traffic lights, all you have to do, I come in from the lake this afternoon, the intersection at where the hospital is, becoming very icy. That's where the icing is. People applying brakes. You're talking about semi trucks here. Lots of them. So to me, the overpass is the long-term solution. We've got other issues with Maine. I mean, it's a lack of bridge. I hope with the sensors working now on the height that we don't keep whacking that bridge. But to me, Swift Current is a model that we could use. You're funneling the traffic down the service roads, and it helps the businesses driving by the business. Plus, you're not, because of that, Ninth Avenue, you don't have room for the toll roads. Swift Current has solved that by utilization of the service roads. And you come off and on the service roads. And by that time, your speed is reduced to 50 kilometers an hour on the service roads. So it's a matter of money, right? I mean, that's why I say the federal government should be involved in this, the provincial government, because it's number one. It's not number 11, it's not number 2. It's a Trans-Canada highway. I think we should put a long-term plan in place on that corridor with overpasses. And I mean, if we get lights as an interim basis, got speed control as an interim basis, I mean, it's safety. That's what it comes down to, safety. Not only convenience, but safety. So I'm a supporter of the overpass. And I think that's where we should shoot for. And I think we should look at funding federal governments and provincial governments to get it done. Spent it in Regina. We're no different here. Our lives are worth just as much here, and the convenience of coming in and out of our city, just as much here as Regina. So I ask that we send a message to the provincial government to look at the overpass situation and look at federal government funding as well.
Thanks much, Dennis. And if everybody can take Dennis's lead, just say your name before you comments or ask your question.
Young, 45-year resident here in the Wichita. I'd like to acknowledge city administration and also city council for hosting this meeting tonight, because it is very, very important. It's been something that residents in this city have thought about, and I have concerns that has been voiced already. I'm here specifically tonight to honor my aunt and uncle and my cousins. My aunt and uncle were killed 17 years ago at that intersection. And from that day forward, as my children were learning to drive and to be on the highways, we've instilled with them, and we try to instill in our family as we use Main Street to go over the highway. Stay away from that intersection as much as possible. In 2006, I believe that Mayor Schwingham was the mayor at the time, I believe. There were lots of lobbying things that took place at that time. And you know, that council at that time was almost that close to having something there and to have something done. I think you stole most of my notes. Exactly what you said, I think, was what most of us did. Ideally, yes, overpass. But as I heard the figure, tonight, 500,000 or $1 million to put lights there would at least say that we did something. And to see lights at that intersection would be an honor to our family, an awful lot, to know that something has finally been done at that intersection. Again, thank you. Appreciate all that you're doing, and hopefully within the future, we're going to be seeing something done on 9th Avenue and Main Street, or at 9th Avenue. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lynn. Anyone else? Any questions of council administration or any other comments? Councilor Logan?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a comment. My name is Jamie Logan, City Council, but my comment is actually as a citizen and as a business owner here in the city. Our business is on the south side of that intersection. And in fact, on the south side of that intersection, we would be the closest business to that intersection. And we, in fact, don't let our staff, or try not to let our staff cross that intersection if possible. And so to the businesses that are on the north side, we feel bad for them because, you know, we have a gas card and we look for gas companies on the south side of that highway. We purposely go out of our way to keep them safe, but it's costing the businesses on the north side of the intersection money. You know, be it A&W or the Petrocan Co-op or whoever's up there, Smitty's, we try to go the other direction just to be safe. And as a homeowner, I'm actually the closest house on the opposite side of 9th Avenue as well. And same thing, we purposely go up Main Street, exactly like the gentleman said, just to make sure that the family stays safe. And so 100% I'd be on board as a business owner and a citizen of the city to whatever the province can do, and hopefully something soon to do whatever they can to try to keep not only my family and my employees, but all the citizens safe. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor Logan. Any others?
Lee Finishin, Chair of the South Central Transportation Planning Committee that Bruce Shaw is a member of, and Crystal Froese is a member of our Executive Working Committee. One of the things I think we need to look at after December 15th and what the province comes to with some of their study and their next solutions, possible solutions, is again, pushing for an overpass, looking for a study. There is a study being done right now in public consultation around needing ahead, Highway 56 and number 1. It's definitely something that needs to be advanced further. Safety is an issue, and there is a mechanism within the area transportation planning committees to nominate projects. About a year ago, I asked the senior planner for the province whether overpasses were in that, or was it just widening a little bit, a turning lane. He said everything's on the table. So that's definitely something we can look at. Every member of the executive working committee for South Central gets to nominate 3 projects. We have the data right now from the police, from the fire department stuff. We can start working on something to nominate a project. Obviously, it's not going to happen right away, but at least it'll get another avenue into the Ministry of Highways. We'll commit to that easily. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Any other members, questions? Any final thoughts then, Mayor Tully or City Manager?
I'll just say personally, Greg, that I think an overpass is the ultimate solution there, and also at Thatcher East and the highway. And my personal thinking was that those are very expensive projects, and the province perhaps was shying away from that obvious solution because of the cost. And so I thought probably traffic lights at 9th and perhaps also at Thatcher and the number 1 highway would be a temporary solution, a way to have people go through those intersections more safely while we convince the provincial government and perhaps apply for some federal funding for the more costly overpasses. I'm very encouraged by the fact that slowing the traffic down has reduced accidents and particularly reduced the impact of accidents. They're much more of a minor accident, but people aren't getting killed there because there's a lot less speed. I find that encouraging. Personally, I like to see us put traffic lights there and then work towards a more permanent solution of an overpass. So that's just my personal view, and I expressed that when we met with the province. But that was not the official city of Moose Jaw position. So thank you for everybody for coming and expressing your opinions, so that we can pass on what our citizens think, not simply our personal opinions. Thank you.
Great. I do have one, and I thought maybe I might hear the data here. Do you want me to?
You had,
Okay. I was wondering that probably we may have the data here tonight, but for any of us that have traveled from Winnipeg to Calgary and on beyond, I know that I stop at many intersections that have lights on that Trans-Canada, and I have no idea how many there are. And when I do that, I stop and I think, why doesn't Moose Jaw have them? That's it. So it would be interesting to know what the data is, to know that, say, even from Winnipeg to Calgary, how many intersections on the Trans-Canada have lights.
yeah, and the impact of those, certainly the two at Brandon come to mind. Good question. All right, well, thank you again all for coming here tonight. I appreciate our guests for taking time out of your lives and everybody here for providing your comments and just being here. As mentioned, we have recorded this and we'll be putting the link out on the city's YouTube channel and our social media. And if anybody wants any follow-up comments, I believe we've got a few days to do that. So the information will be in those social media posts. You can send an email. I believe it's to the city manager at moosejaw.ca. That is the email address if you want to follow up with any comments or questions. Thank you all and have a safe drive.